Joe Rogan shares the real reason why Kamala Harris didn't do his podcast.
Well, I heard you might have needed to cancel on us to get Kamala Harris on.
I was not going to do that. I would have had to. I knew you guys flew from England, and I wasn't going to cancel on you because she had an opportunity to come in. You could look at this and you could say, oh, you're being a diva. But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight. If she's up. She wants to, drink a Red Bull, fucking party on.
Yeah, but I think this idea that you're being a diva is silly because you're offering her the opportunity to do exactly what the other candidate did, right?
This is the same woman who had to take 2 days off before her Fox News interview.
Well, she actually reached out when she found out that he was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down, and they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, like, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like people.
Yeah, so J.D. Vance said when he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, it was the first time he'd been alone in a room without Secret Service since he was nominated or announced as Trump's running mate.
And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like people were waving them off. That's a distraction. People in the room, like my whole goal with her and with him is just talk, have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them at least, a real sense. That was it. I don't give a fuck what we talk about. I really don't. I just want to talk to you. Who the fuck are you?
Do you think they think that you're on his side and they're more wary of you?
I don't know. I mean, there's just because of my appearance, there's always been this assumption that I'm some right-wing MAGA guy.
I think as Joe Rogan has become more wealthy, he's tuned more into the right side of things.
I was a Bernie supporter. I am I'm a politically homeless person for sure.
Politically homeless. I like the way he puts that. So maybe a lot of swing voters right now.
I always considered myself a left-wing person. I never thought I would ever vote right-wing. But then the tides of culture shifted in a very bizarre way. And it just made me, over time, much more aware of what this stuff is really all about. Because what this stuff is really all about is just these natural human behavior patterns and these tribal instincts that we have. And it overpowers all discussions. It overpowers what's good for the collective group. It overpowers everything. It's just people pick a fucking team, and then whatever that team says, they can do no harm. They will do their best to marginalize the horrible effects of the furthest extreme version of that, whether it's Antifa or the Proud Boys. They'll minimalize the...
I see this with sports teams, right? Like if someone is a fan of an opposing team, why would you hate or dislike that person, right? Just because they like a team that you don't. I think the right is more accepting of the left's viewpoint in this regard. We don't hate the person. Maybe we dislike what they believe in, but we're not going to hate the person because of what they believe in.
It's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. If you look at what's going on with the liberals right now, so progressives they want the war in Ukraine to be funded. They want to censor speech online, and they want to give the World Health Organization, which is deeply influenced by Big Pharma, including the FDA, deeply influenced. The revolving door between the FDA and pharmaceutical drug companies is legendary. And they want to give them control over what we take and what we don't take. And that's crazy. And that doesn't make sense because that's not what the liberals were when I was a kid. My parents were hippies. We lived in San Francisco during the Vietnam War. Wow. My parents were like straight up hippies. That's how I was raised. And so for me, it was always like the liberals were the ones who wanted education and open-mindedness. The liberals who were the ones with the ACLU let the Nazis talk and let them have a rally.
Now it's the right that's punk rock. We are the rebels. We are the minority.
Said you can't infringe on people's free speech because if you infringe on the speech of people that you disagree with, you're being a fucking hypocrite. You got to. The only solution to bad speech is better speech. We've always known that. But when they had the power over social media and these collective groups of people that all had the same ideology, and then that tribal mentality kicks in, and you lose the perspective that you should have as an educated person that recognizes that everyone has to be able to talk, and we have to figure out who's right. And
you know what would really break the internet would be Kamala Harris and Trump both on the Joe Rogan podcast simultaneously, right? Having this kind of dynamic where they can both respond to each other and actually have a conversation versus, here's your 2 minutes. Mic is cut off. Here's your 2 minutes. We're going to fact check you, maybe not fact check you, etc. I think it's a terrible format. Joe Rogan's talked about this too. I like a long format. If you let someone talk long enough, the bullshit begins to come out, right?
You might be wrong. You might be wrong, and you might be clinging to this idea that you're right, and you're going to do the whole thing a terrible disservice.
What's interesting is Kamala was caught on a hot mic telling Gretchen that she needed to reach out to more men. And if you look at Joe Rogan's audience, a lot of it is dudes. I mean, that's a huge demographic, not to mention, I think, the biggest podcast in the world. Kamala not being willing to do the Joe Rogan podcast is campaign suicide, right? If you look at the powerful JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience YouTube channel, he has 3,200 videos. And right now, sitting in number 2, most popular at 42 million views, is his episode with Donald Trump. He's even beat out the infamous episode where Elon Musk takes a puff of marijuana and the episode with Edward Snowden. Let's go to the comments. I just want to get to know her as a person. Unfortunately, that's the one thing both she and her handlers are the most afraid of. The earpiece only lasts 1 hour on full charge. It turns out fear was a factor for Kamala. Austin, Texas is just too close to the border for Kamala. She visited the border one time during her tenure as VP. One time, and she was the border czar. That's appalling. For Kamala to just throw away tens of millions of views in favor of more softball conversations on different platforms is, as Joe Rogan would say, bananas. The left has been quick to spin it as Joe Rogan as a diva, unwilling to actually have Kamala Harris on the show. I'm glad that Joe Rogan stood his ground and said it needs to be on the same terms as Donald Trump and JD Vance. Come to the studio in Austin, Texas, sit down with me, and let's have a long conversation and find out who you are. What do you think? Do you think Joe Rogan should have kowtowed to Kamala Harris's camp and flown out to her for an hour interview? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to Conservative Vibes. I'm CV. I'll see you next time.